Why do people stop playing Super Mario Maker 2? Quick answer is there's nothing fun to do after completing the courses Nintendo included with the game. While this is not strictly true, it is true enough that millions of people who bought the game stopped playing after the included courses. So let's look at the other things you can do in the game and the problems with them. Let's start with the best option and work our way down. Option 1. Ninja speedruns. Even though these will be of most interest to speedrunners, your average player can at least compare their performance to the best in the world without having to feel bad about it. Option 2. Multiplayer. Multiplayer does technically allow you to play with and against other players online. However, Nintendo's decision of how to implement online multiplayer leads inevitably to poor performance. First, their decision to make it peer-to-peer, but also head-to-head, with all players appearing and interacting on the same course, and not take latency into account when matching players, leads inevitably to lag when two players are too far apart on the internet latency-wise. Mainly this seems to have been done to save money on the game long term. If Nintendo were to have sprung for dedicated multiplayer servers, then they would have had to keep them up long after they had made as much money as they were likely to on the game, or call a premature end to the multiplayer aspect of the game. Additionally, the levels chosen for multiplayer are not effectively rated. Most of them are not even close to ideal for a fun multiplayer experience. They are only rated by the community, and so many levels are being created that a sizable proportion of the levels you get to play, you will be the first one to rate. Option 3. Make and play courses. I'm including these in the same item because the reasons both things are not fun are closely related and have a very interesting history. So it's time for a history lesson. We need to go back all the way to the video game crash of 1983, or as it was called in Japan, the Atari shock. In 1982, the most popular console in the United States was the Atari 2600, and one of the main reasons for this was the huge number of titles available for that console. While many of them, perhaps even the majority of them, were kind of crappy, just playing the ones that weren't was enough entertainment for a great number of people. The very next year, sales plummeted, and Atari was in dire straits from which they never really recovered. The lesson the wider industry learned from this was that not everyone was interested in just any bit of code that a programmer found fun. They started to pay attention to genres of games as their own markets rather than one giant game market, and developed those genres of games with franchises in which they invested heavily and made careful choices about any potential changes or improvements. But Nintendo learned a very different lesson. One of the things Atari had done was allow anyone and everyone the ability to release games for the 2600. They made details of their architecture and how to write games for it easy to obtain. They did almost nothing beyond simple branding to distinguish their own titles. They didn't put any protections in place which might require developers to get their permission or partnership in order to release games. And while this led their install base to grow very quickly to the point where they dominated the market, it also led to a perception that their product was kind of crappy. And also, it made it very hard for them to sell that user base, for instance, a new console. First, the new console would have to be fully backwards compatible, which couldn't help but either limit its power or increase its cost. And second, it could never hope to have nearly as many new games available for the new console until long after it came out, making for very little incentive for folks to buy it nearly as fast as they bought the original. Nintendo saw this and they thought, well, we can never do it that way or we'll fail like Atari did, and they still believe it nearly 40 years later. They limit the developers allowed to release games for their platforms to a very small number and charge them enough that only very high-quality popular games can hope to make a profit, and implement specific technologies to make it very difficult to release games that work on their platform without their permission. In addition, they have been very wary of releasing any game that allows user-generated content, probably because they see such user-generated content in a very similar light as all the crappy games released for the Atari 2600 in the early 1980s. There is nothing so technically difficult about Super Mario Maker that would have prevented them from releasing it in the 90s, if not earlier, but it didn't come out until 2015, and not because there wasn't interest. People were so interested in making their own Super Mario courses that by 2015 a thriving community had grown up of folks willing to skirt the law to modify Nintendo's cartridges without permission just so they could make their own Super Mario courses and play those made by others. Unsurprisingly, these folks had already played the original games to death, speedrunning them, uncovering all kinds of bugs and exploits, disassembling the code to see how they worked, playing them on emulators, all things Nintendo took a pretty dim view of. And unsurprisingly, when the Super Mario Maker series came out in 2015, these communities went for it in a big way. Having made courses for years, they were some of the most talented course designers in the world outside of Nintendo, and they made the best courses. But they were also the best players in the world, and they made courses that could challenge them, which made them far too hard for your average player. And there was nothing about Super Mario Maker 2 that effectively changed this dynamic. So, if you are not already a member of this community, not already an excellent Super Mario player and course designer, what happens when you try to make or play user courses on Super Mario Maker 2? The courses you can play are either too hard or crappy, and the courses you design are either too easy or not quite good enough for the community to find interesting. While there are definitely exceptions to this rule, this is the experience of the vast majority of people who try to either play or create courses in the Super Mario Maker series of games. Now, there are all kinds of ways of dealing with this. As a player or course designer, as a player, you can seek out courses specifically designed to train you up to the point where you can beat more difficult courses, and the hardcore community has made many such courses and will welcome your attempts. But that's definitely a significant commitment that few casual players are willing to make and in no way supported by the game itself. You must find these courses independently by searching online. You can try playing only the most popular courses, but this does require using a search feature, and after you've played the top 10 to 20 or so, it's a drag to scroll down through them every time. What's more, these courses have not been designed in any way to provide increasing but reasonable challenges. As a course designer, there are many things you can do to get attention, but only one of them is to actually try to become a better course designer, and it is by no means the easiest nor guaranteed to succeed. The easiest is to make your courses harder by tricky means. For instance, you can make a course harder just by making sure the player dies if they don't do exactly the right thing. Good course design would suggest that allowing the player to try again without actually dying is probably a good thing in many situations, though of course not all. Still, they need not lose a life every time they miss a difficult jump or fail to choose the correct door or pipe, for instance. But as every life lost counts as a play, and part of the popularity of a course is the number of plays, simply making a course harder than it needs to be can inflate your number of plays, as some people are simply determined to bang their heads against a wall no matter how boring that wall is. Also, having the maximum number of courses uploaded can increase the number of plays your courses get, which increases your popularity as a creator, which also inflates the popularity of your courses, but producing courses as quickly as possible also doesn't lead to good course design. Another thing you can do is inflate your number of plays by submitting your courses to YouTubers to play, and sure, watching streams with other course creators can give you some ideas, if not always original ones, but also this is a lot of time to spend when you could be designing good courses without distraction. Now, ideally, the solution for this would be for Nintendo to make amends and engage with the community of hardcore Super Mario enthusiasts, allow them an official and easy-to-find place within the game to showcase their courses and good training courses. At the very least, they could do what they did with the original Super Mario Maker and make it easy to get online links into the game. What could the hardcore community do? They've done much of what they can, but I think a more general discouragement of hard but not fun courses, including not giving such courses more plays than they deserve, and an encouragement and showcasing of less difficult courses that aren't simply training for harder ones, but actually fun in their own right, even though they don't personally get much challenge from such courses, might help. Now, I'm not in charge of Nintendo, nor am I a hardcore Super Mario player, but I'm doing what I can on my YouTube and Twitch channels. I've set up a different queue system from everyone else I know online. Instead of a line, my queue is a pile. I decide which course in the pile I will play next, and I always choose the course I think will be the most fun. I avoid spending lives on courses that do not effectively bridge the gap between casual and hardcore Super Mario gamers, and I get a lot of grief from viewers who show up expecting a first-in, first-out system. I have to explain my system multiple times during every stream, and sometimes even that doesn't stop folks from giving me lots of thumbs down. So I've made this informational video in the hopes that folks will better understand why I do things the way I do, and hopefully support me in doing so in the future.